Hi, everyone. It's Steph Gafori,
And Kenan McCumber, and welcome back to
Twin Chat. We are so happy to be back for episode number 2. And we have our dear friend, Larisa Whipple, who's joining us today. We have known her since our freshman year in high school. Go Cards, Lincoln High School, Portland, Oregon. Larisa is a therapist and social worker, and she works in private practice in her office outside of Seattle, Washington. And she's been practicing for 16 years. So, our intention for this episode is to get real with Larisa, and we call her Reese too, just so our audience knows, and to talk to her about navigating parenting while also working as a therapist and helping others. And how does she help herself? What is her self care? So that's the topic of today's podcast. And Kenan, I'll turn it over to you.
well, I just want to echo that we are so excited to have you, Reese. But before we begin and jump into our agenda, or lack thereof, because we don't really know where this will go as far as following the flow of our conversation today. But we would love for you to start with your favorite twin story.
Well, thank you so much for having me on. I am so excited. I'm so excited. And I'm so happy for you that you are launching this because the two of you have so much wisdom and so much love and the best laughs of anybody on the planet. So, everyone is going to just be filled up by your joy and your inquiry, and I'm so excited to be here. So thank you for having me. Thank you for having me. When you first mentioned that you were doing this and I got to start dreaming about being on, I of course started thinking about the hundreds of stories we have together from almost 30 years of life, like way more life together than not. And it's impossible to pick the best or the funniest or the most meaningful because there are so many of each of those stories. But one story that is really it's more a moment than a story that stands out in my mind, because it was so profound for many reasons, was we were in our early 20s, and Kenan, you were living in San Francisco, and I had recently moved there. And Steph, you were getting ready to go travel around the world. And the three of us, the day before you left, went and got a pedicure. And we sat, and I remember just being like overwhelmed with this profound excitement for you, Steph, like joy, admiration, adoration. And Kenan, you and I were together, like holding hands and filling this incredible bond and friendship for each other. So it was really, for me, such a special moment, literally sitting with the two of you and being visually woven into your bond. And we did toes and we laughed, and fast forward a full year later, Steph lands, she comes home, she's amazing, she's transformed, and Kenan and I also transformed, but like living a different journey. And I looked down at Stephanie's feet, and she had the same toenail polish on, and I was like, how is this possible? How did you go a whole year? And it was really, but it was so symbolic of that moment that we were together and rooting to each other and rooting to, like, okay, hold deep, hold tight, we got this. And out, and then coming back in and having that symbol on your feet. So that is one of my like symbolic favorite stories of
Well, and I remember that. And I remember like, I actually, and I think we got manicures too, because I actually remember like chipping the nail polish off of my fingers in one country because I was like, I can't get nail polish remover here. And so like my fingernails I could chip off, my toenails, no, it wasn't happening. So, but I love that because it is, you know what I think about when you say that is it's so symbolic of how much we change, right? Yet we still take ourselves with us, right? So we like, I went through this life-changing year-long journey, and yet I still remained like, I changed internally, but there was external things that like symbolically remained the same, you know?
Totally, 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 totally.
I go back to that time period, Reese and Steph, and I think about, while Steph was leaving, um, and it was, a void to a certain extent, happened in my life with her leaving. But you at that point, Reese, came in because we had been friends in high school, but you and Stephanie were certainly a lot closer. And then we got to have that space together, and we forged our own friendship that bonded us for life. I mean, that was our San Francisco experience. I wouldn't have traded for anything. It was so incredible. And we missed you to no end, Steph, but I think that created a space that was different for Reese and I to really have our own friendship, not just the three of us together. And that was really special for me.
And it really is interesting when we think about, I mean, I know I'm one of the blessed and privileged ones in the two of your lives that have gotten to be best friends with the both of you, but really the gift of our separateness too. It's something that as the folded in, as the woven in sister that I like to call myself. And I know that there's others that get to be woven in sisters too. That it is that sense of being seen and loved and held by the two of you. It is a very special place to be when you're on the other side. And I people have sometimes asked me, well, is it hard for you because they're their own thing, they're best friends there, and I'm like, are you kidding me? No, I mean, that really, it would be disingenuous to say we have ever had something come up about like, like left out, or like, no, it's just how it is. Like, I get to be a part of your light, and then we get to create more light together. So yeah, I think that is a really, really awesome part. And your question and intention about how we work and find balance and navigate this journey as care as carers, as lovers, I like to call it. um, my journey to becoming a social worker was in so many ways inspired, Stephanie, by your trip around the world, and Kenan, your international travels, and your family, how your family wove in, seeing the world and bringing the world in as an integral part of how to be on the planet. Right. I'm sorry, I have one more story. One of my other favorite stories is when I actually first met the two of you. It was the right before freshman year, and you had just come back from India, and we were at soccer tryouts at the park in Portland, Oregon. And I remember overhearing you talking at the water break about how you had just landed and you had just come home. And I was like, oh, wow. I'd never known anyone that went to India. I don't even know if I actually could find it on a map, but there was this breadth of that the world was so big, and the two of you have always had that, and you have always inspired that within me. And it is because of you that I have traveled and went on to study social work, but in the capacity with a focus on cultural competency and international understanding. So that was how I started my work. Was for maybe the first 6 or 7 years, I worked with survivors of torture. And so that was an international population. And most everyone I saw had somehow found their way to needing mental health support. And when I think about getting to be in the position of serving and caring for those clients, it does come back to you and you inspiring me. So thank you. Thank you for being a really integral part of not only my heart journey, but my professional journey and where it's taken me.
Well, you know what, Reese, I never connected those dots. So to hear you say that, I'm like, wow, that is so amazing, because you, and just a quick story. When you went and did your travel around the world with your husband, you were married then? No, were you married?
Yes.
Yes, you were married at the time. Okay, yes. And so, that was, I saw this like this amazing journey that you guys went on and trekking through Nepal, and you came that's when I was living in Amsterdam, and you and Chris popped in and got to, I feel like I got to take care of you, even though you were probably taking care of me. But it was like the travelers have come into my little nest, and I get to wrap my arms around them, and you guys had all these adventures and wild stories um, from your experience together. And I saw when you came home too, both of you had a different outlook on life, right? You went and you were trying to figure out what because this was way before graduate school. This was you were early 20s, mid 20s.
It was just before graduate school. Yeah.
Okay, just before graduate school. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. It was, to reflect on what motivates us to make some of our professional choices. And for me, profession has really always kind of been secondary to how how do I want to try to make the world better? And while that's this like big question, it's one that's actually weighted me down at times. It's actually been a very it's been a hard question for me to navigate for myself. And now, even now, I was just kind of noticing recently, how do I want to share my time and my life and my light? And I think as a mother, that question becomes even more complicated. But at the start of my professional career, I knew that I wanted to work with a population that didn't have a lot of places to feel seen, or in this case, actually be seen. They were asylum seekers whose journey it was to retell their story of having been persecuted in their home country, with the purpose of then being granted asylum. But they had to retell their story in front of a judge. And for people who have experienced trauma, and in this case, such profound trauma, retelling the details of what has happened to you
Mhm.
is incredibly, there's sometimes no words for it. And so it that work to me was really, it felt so, it felt like that's where I was supposed to be at the time. That
Mhm.
was where there was, it's just where I needed to be. But it was also such a strenuous and heart weighing experience that I really had to start practicing then how to take care of myself. And I have gone through many stages of not being good at it and other stages of being really, really good at it. But it was kind of like being thrown in. And if I didn't care for myself, I wasn't going to be able to continue the work.
And Reese,
So I
what are some
think
ways that you did that?
I think then I really did. There's so many names to call it for me. It's a quieting. I think other people call it meditation. Other people call it folding in. But for me, it is a cue that I get from myself that I need to. I mean, I actually visualize folding in my own lotus and coming inward. And then when it's time and I'm ripe and rejuvenated, my petals open back up. So when I get those cues from myself, which usually look like a fatigue, irritability, I can become small stressors can feel far bigger. So my capacity to kind of hold moderate stress is really not available. So I know I'm like pretty good now at listening to myself. I'm like, wait, you just overreacted to that. What do you need?
Mhm.
What do you need? And again, the visual for me is really, really powerful. So like the person at the airport that takes the wand that tries to beep you, I kind of do that for myself. And I'm like, okay, wait, where's the stress? Where's the worry? Where's the heaviness? And what do you need? Do you need sleep? Sometimes I just need sleep.
Mhm.
Which I'm not always like very good at. Again, that's one of my cues for myself is when I'm too taxed. I don't sleep very well. Have you worked out? And not in the workout way of, did you work out? Did you work out? It's did you exhale in to connecting to your body? And for me and for us, right, that's been an incredible place of connecting. Like, let's go for that nourishing run. And it's not the militant run. And for the three of us, it's such a special gift of, oh, I feel whole again. So those are two things. But for me, the folding in is really being quiet. And I think you know this about me over the years. If you don't hear from me for a little while, it's not that I don't love you or think about you or want to be connected to the details of your life. It's, oh, I like, it's almost like a protective quality. And I will just be quiet. I will be quiet. And then I do feel nourished. So I don't know if that sort of answers the question.
Yeah, well, and you know, I was thinking too, um, you know, with parenting, right? So you had to learn this. You had to learn this when you were doing your therapy prior to having kids with the victims of torture, and then to bring that sort of presence of awareness of when I'm overtaxed, because it happened. I mean, you're still doing therapy. It's. I know you're not doing the exact same therapy, but you're still engaging energetically with your clients every day in very intense work. I know the work you are doing is very intense. And so when you bring that like into the home, like, you know, I know you have tools as a therapist to like, you know, not bring it home into your daily life, but talk to us a little bit more about what that looks like with, you know, raising two beautiful daughters and having a busy life.
Mm, isn't that the great art of this? Some days and some days you get it, and other days you're like, oh, I am so off. And to that point, I think having grace with myself about being imperfect and just letting go. Sometimes, I mean, I talk in with myself of, okay, that's okay. Just let's let that one go. Let it. We had 14 loads of laundry, literally 14 loads. You had to, put on the proverbial scuba gear to go and find a pair of underwear. And that for me is hard. Like that, it's hard for me to have 14 loads of laundry. But there's also this great practice for me of just just letting go. That is not a detail of this journey that needs your attention right now. Where does your attention need to go? Does it need to go to yourself? Does it need to, does my husband need our care? Does that need some love? Do my girls need something? Again, but it's in the quiet for me of listening that I always get some answer about where I need to be. And it's in the chatter of doing too much that I miss the cues for myself and for them. So for me, finding balance, and you know this about me because I really have worked hard at it over the years, is to be organized. So for me to have a set schedule of how many people I'm going to see professionally in the week. Will I see a friend socially in the week? And does that mean like an hour of us getting to talk on the phone? That is like such a hard fill. That brings me great nourishment. And then am I going to say no? Saying no has been the gift of staying in a place of balance and, quiet again for me. So, when my girls were really young, therapy, um, I just remember being really tired. So it took more effort to be super present. As they've gotten older and are more self sufficient, that privilege of getting to be with another person in a, therapeutic sense has really been a privilege. I mean, that is it. It does not deplete me in the way that I think it would if I didn't have some of these other pieces in place to make sure that I had both of my feet on the ground with my toes painted.
Yeah.
Reese, I think you touched on something that has been a big takeaway for me and our friendship is giving ourselves permission. And I've watched you, and I draw upon you. You are with me so often, and I just want you to know that I sometimes my kids will say, "Is that Auntie Reese talking right now?" In what I say, and I love that, and I'm like, "Yes, I'm channeling Auntie Reese. I'm doing something right." I was just calm in that moment. But I last time when we were fortunate to be together for our girls' weekend, and we missed Seth because she was in Hawaii. But I just remember you saying, "I'm going to do a body scan right now," and it was before we left the house to make sure that you had turned off all the lights and locked doors and everything. And I was like, "Oh, put that one in my toolbox. I love that." But and I think that's something as friends, like, you are somebody who fills me up. We all have those friends that deplete us, and knowing who we can go to for that nourishment, and that, it's not about the needing a boost of confidence by any means, but feeling that deep love that when you leave, I feel full and ready to, the world is there for me, and I got this. It really gives you have this incredible presence about you that I know Steph would agree with me. Like, we feel so lucky to have you in our
Well,
life.
it's a magnet, Kenan. She's a magnet. It's like people are drawn in, and I see that, like, you know, I see that in the way that you show up for everyone, because you show up in this presence of, when you're like, I'm here, when you show up to a baby shower. I was just thinking about, Anjani's baby shower last year, and you were like, you're like, I'm here, I'm present. And even if you had to move mountains back home to get there, when you landed in Portland, and you're like, I'm here, let's hit the ground running. What
Like,
can
you
I
need to
do?
leave in 6 hours, but she was there for those
Yes,
present 6
you're there
hours.
for 6 hours, but you were like, all right, girls, what can I do? You need help with flowers, you need this, you need that. And it's that joy, right? And so I think what the essence of what I'm trying to get at is that it doesn't have to be 24/7, right? I think we put this pressure on ourselves that we have to be on, we have to be like at this energy level all the time. And if we push ourselves to that, that's when depletion happens, right? That's when we have to put the lotus flower, and we have to go in. And I because I'm saying that actually for me, because I think your experience is a little bit different, because you do that when you're, on a, mine's more on a social level, yours is on a work level, right? Mine, I get these, like, I feel so social, and I overextend myself, and then I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't. I get like almost physically ill, but I don't realize it until I slow down and stop. And then I'm like, oh, okay. But I think that visual of the lotus flower coming in, and you know what I picked for you guys today? Our podcast viewers can't see this, but I picked this beautiful flower, and I can use this as the visual. It's not a lotus. I don't even know what this beautiful flower is, but it was in our yard.
Hibiscus.
Wow. Does
Is
it
it hibiscus?
smell? Does it smell?
Hibiscus, I think.
Can you smell it?
It has a slight fragrance.
Oh,
Yeah.
so, oh, I love that. I love the two of you as if you were my own flesh and blood. I love you. My children love you. You are, we, and to this point of not being on 24/7, we also can't be the only inspiration for our children. And for my two daughters, to have the two of you to help be, I, like you said, Ken, I'm gonna borrow that. Oh yes. And so I'll say, I don't know, you have to call Auntie Steph or Auntie Ken. Like, there's a mountain, a plethora of things that we, oh yes, borrow from them. Borrow from them. Their light and their kindness and how they give it is infectious, and you get to be in that too. I am so grateful to be in your light. It is truly one of the deepest joys of my whole life. And when I think about who nourishes me. I mean, kind of to your point, Stephanie, I am not nourished socially usually. You don't know this about me. You nourish me. You nourish me. And I think part of knowing what works for you, for one, is picking the people that nourish you and sticking there, and just being really true to that, true to yourself for that, and true to those people for that. So thank you for being my nourishment. Thank you for being my sister besties. And I can't wait to be on your show again.
Well, I know, I feel like as things go with the three of us, we could just keep chatting and chatting and chatting, but we've made a commitment to 30 minutes because, and I actually wanted to tell our audience this because Kenan and I were talking, why 30 minutes? Why 30 minutes? And we do bar 3 every morning, and we never do the 45-minute video. It's too long. Like, we have 30 minutes, and we're like, we do this before our kids wake up. So it's like 30 minutes. So we want to be, as we want to tell everyone out there, we're going to try to stick to 30 minutes just because we think that that's a good amount of time to like tune in and be present. And we're really grateful that you guys all joined us. And Larisa, we are so grateful to have you on as our first guest on Twin Chat.
Thank you for having me. I can't wait to hear all of the episodes to come.
Thank you. Thank you for being here, Reese.
Thank you.
Hey, love you.
You.